Hare Krishna, welcome to the Sunday program in Dublin. What we're going to do today is read from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Does anybody here read Bhagavad Gita every day? Very good. Every day. Almost. So anyway, those who haven't, at least we're going to read a chapter today. So at least I've done your chapter today. And you can continue for longer if you want. You can continue every day if you want. It's very, very important scripture. I thought I'd take a place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read from it, and also then I'm going to take a purport, which is an explanation by Srila Prabhupada, so we can immerse ourselves in the wisdom of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who translated many of the scriptures, especially the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So I'm going to read the English first of all, and then go through it. So if you can, try to pay attention. It's easy kind of to drift off. I know. I've been in that situation a lot in my lifetime. But if you can, try to concentrate. I've been very, very generous because I've chosen one of the shortest chapters as well, to make it a bit easier. It's chapter 15, but there's another reason I did it as well. The title is the Yoga of the Supreme Person. So here we go. Everybody ready? Got your attention antenna on? Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upward and branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of human society. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree, this strongly rooted tree, with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, and who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto that Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. This supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and then quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and were not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and ingoing, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. Besides these 2, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the 3 worlds and is maintaining them. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in this world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Whoever knows me as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of God. He therefore engages himself in full devotion to me, O son of Bharat. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, the most sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, endeavors will know perfection. Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So that's speaking to us directly. There's so many messages in the next 10 discussing one or names for them to understand who Krishna is. This is how it took about 5 minutes. So if you read 5 minutes every day, each of these chapters, Krishna said, what does Krishna say at the end? Does anyone know? He says, whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. In fact, it's said in a later chapter, and he will go straight to the spiritual world as well. I just wanted to also go back on, repeat just one verse, which just completely came. The real of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. The determination one must found this strongly rooted tree, the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. And there, surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. It's like the whole basis of Krishna consciousness, of the whole basis of life is in that verse. So, but still, I'm going to choose another verse because it's important to know who we are in this world. And Krishna, in this particular verse, explains exactly what our relationship is with the Supreme, and what our relationship is, our eternal relationship is with God. So that's worth knowing, isn't it? That's important to know. Because if we don't, we might have standing and we could be, as the phrase goes, barking up the wrong tree for a long time. But Krishna is so kind. He's so kind to give us this knowledge for us to take. So we're intelligent, we'll actually just take his word on face, because no one else could speak Bhagavad Gita. Only the Supreme can speak Bhagavad Gita. I mean, if we look at the circumstances of the Bhagavad Gita, it was been on a battlefield just before a war, and Arjuna was doubtful about what to do during the war, because his relatives were on the other side, and he was meant to fight with them. So he was a gentle soul, but the people he was fighting were very demoniac people, in the sense that they were very aggressive. They tried to kill Arjuna and all his family for like many years. They were aggressors. They were trying to usurp the kingdom. And Arjuna, being kind-hearted, and his whole family, they resisted all the time. They didn't retaliate. But finally, they had to, because they were being confronted in a battle. They had to arm up against these people, because they were going to slay them outright. So Arjuna was going to not to fight still. But then eventually Krishna convinced Arjuna to fight. How did he convince him? Does anybody know? How did Krishna convince Arjuna to fight? He used many ways, but there's one specific one. Shani?
He told them that they were already dead, it was already preordained.
Yeah, very good, my dear. That's my dear wife there, I'm very proud of her. Yeah, because he showed the universal form. And when he was showing that form, he showed that all the warriors on the battlefield were already killed. Krishna had already decided. There was no more. Krishna was not going to put up any more. Arjuna was still going to put up with it. But Krishna said, no, that's it. These people, they've already been put to the sword by my arrangement. Because they had committed too many heinous activities. And so Krishna is not going to tolerate it any longer. Because Krishna's God. So therefore Krishna can speak the Bhagavad Gita because he knows all these things. So that's why we accept him as an authority. There's another very interesting place here. Now listen to this one very carefully, because it really sums up so much about who we are, and I'll come back to what Prabhupada says in this now, but I'll just say Prabhupada's translation here. Is everybody ready? This is an important message. This is your. Can you imagine now? You're just about to get a plane, and are you going to? And to get on the plane, you need to have your passport and your ticket, right? And then suddenly you don't have it. Are you going to feel okay? The plane is going off to your favorite destinations, your holiday you've earned after many hard weeks working, and then suddenly you haven't got your passport and your ticket. Would you be kind of very excited? Where is it? I have the plane is going in 20 minutes. And if it's Ryanair, it means that you're not going to get your money back. You're going to have to pay more. But so here you are. This particular message is even more important, because it's our passport and our ticket back to the spiritual world. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the airs carry aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and quits it to take another. Can you imagine? This is us, the soul. Okay? We're going on to the next body. We're going on to the next body. We've forgotten the one that we were in previously. And in our next body, generally, 99.999% we forget about the previous body, and we just then we discover this new body, and we start acting in this body again, in another body. As much as we're familiar with this particular body that we're in at the moment, we'll forget it again. We'll completely forget it. We'll forget O'Connell Street, we'll forget Abbey Street, we'll forget, what our workplace is, we'll forget where we went to school, we'll forget even our country, we'll forget even our planet sometimes, We might even forget from out of the human species. We may have a demigod species, we don't know. But that soul is carried from one lifetime to the next. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Now, let's not be in this category. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. And here's the important line. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. This is the training manual, the Bhagavad Gita. This is where we become trained. And by reading Bhagavad Gita chapter every day, we will become expert to know how to leave our body and where to go in our next life and not to come back here. The endeavouring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. Let's be in that category. Let's go to be the self-realization. But those whose minds are not developed and who are situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So in general, the material world is full of that. People don't know what's happening. They don't even think that there's soul. They don't know whether they're going. They don't know whether there's God. So this is the situation we're in. So this is the verse I want to read today. Malmevangsha jiva loka jiva bhuta sanatana manakshastan indriyani prakritishani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditional life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Again, I'm going to ask for your attention because I'm going to read what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport. In this verse, the identity of the living being is clearly given. The living entity is the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, eternally. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmented. It is clearly said, Sanatana. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva and the secondary expansions are called living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion and the living entities are the separated expansions. By his personal expansion, he is manifested in various forms like Lord Rama, Nrsingadeva, Vishnumurti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. The separated expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual identities of the Godhead, are always present. Similarly, the separated expansions of living entities have their identity. As fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the living entities are also have fragmental portions of his qualities, of which independence is one. Every living entity as an individual soul has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul. And by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal, as the Supreme Lord is. In his liberated state, he is freed from the material condition, and he is under the engagement of the transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditional life, he is dominated by the material modes of nature, and he forgets the transcendental service of the Lord. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. The living entities, not only human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of the material world, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu, are all parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word karshati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up through as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence. When the mind is in the mode of goodness, his activities are good. When the mind is in the mode of passion, his activities are troublesome. And when the mind is in the mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower species of life. It is clear, however, in this verse that the conditioned soul is covered by the material body with the mind and the senses, and when he is liberated, this material covering perishes, but his spiritual body manifests itself in its individual capacity. The following information is there in the Maya Dinani Shruti. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. And in the spiritual body, he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He can hear and speak to him face to face. And he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is. From Smriti, also understood, Vasanti Yatra Purusha Sarva Murtaya. In the spiritual planets, everyone lives in bodies featured like the Supreme Personality of Godheads. As far as bodily construction is concerned, there is no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansions of Vishnumurti. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's the last paragraph. The words Mama Yangsha, fragments of the Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental Supreme Lord is not some material broken part that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. This fragment is not materially conceived. It's not like to be cut into pieces and joined. That conception, the Sanskrit word sanatana, eternal, is used. The fragmental portion is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter, that in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Tehina Smimyata Tehe. That fragmental portion, liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky, in a spiritual planet, and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, and just as the parts and parcel of gold are also gold. So how many people did I lose when I was there? Anybody? Or did everybody hang on to every word there? It's a little difficult, isn't it? It is a little difficult, actually. It's good. How do you go? But let me just take it. Let's just kind of break it down a bit. Hopefully we can follow the points. But first of all, I want to offer my obeisances to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Chitani Nishatani Amaginat Vandasya Jana Jana Shavakya Chakshur Militami Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spirit opened my eyes with that taught knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Sorry, I was wondering if could somebody could I ask somebody to get me some water? Just, there you go, thank you. So Krishna here is explaining to us what our situation is in the material world. Has to appear everybody who's an individual person. Is everybody individual, or are they somebody else? You can't really be somebody else. How can you be somebody else if you're yourself? But you know, because of illusion, sometimes we think we're somebody else. We think we're something else. But the real self is the spirit self. It's like I said at the start there, the last one time we're in one body and we get it completely, and then we take another body. Didn't we say that? Do you remember me saying that? Yeah. We're in one body, and then when we go into the next body, suddenly we go to this body. You know, there's my mother and father. There's my friends. There's the school. This is where I'm going to go to school. This is where I. You kind of learn it all again, you know, and that's what's happening. But yet, here it says we're an individual soul. Do you know? It's quite amazing, isn't it? Because we're an individual soul, but we're in different bodies. The bodies are changing, you know, but it's the same kind of like. I always like the word of a kind of battery or a dynamo. We're the same soul that's energizing each of those. The third soul is very, very powerful. Why? Because it's coming from God. Because God is the supremely powerful. God is in every atom. You know, He's giving life to. Otherwise, there'd be no life. There'd be nothing there. That's where all the energy is coming from. It's coming from God. And He's not some kind of guy like you or me, you know. He's not some very limited personality. He's a supreme personality, and this is why this is called, at the end of it, I don't know if anyone noticed, Krishna says, this is the most confidential knowledge. Thank you. Krishna says, this is the most confidential knowledge. It's the most confidential knowledge, right? But Krishna's telling us it. That's pretty good, isn't it? We're in a very big secret here. Because it's like, as I said earlier, it's the passport to leave this place and regain that very powerful self. Because just like, how powerful the soul is to suddenly manifest a body like this. You see every year how the flowers and trees, how they grow up again, you know. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? When I was out chanting this morning, even up at the top of one of our roads, there are these 4 or 5 different types of, and like there's lots of weeds there, but these flowers come out regularly. They're kind of, one's a poppy, one's a big daisy, one is a kind of a lily, and these are just kind of growing wild, you know. So there's an energy there that's producing that every year, do you know? Each of those, if I picked out that flower, okay, it might come back, because it's still kill the flower. But if I uproot the flower, it won't come again. That particular flower is gone. But every year it comes out again. So that's like of how the soul can take on different bodies. Just a small example. But we can see the power of the nature though. The nature is allowing that flower to blossom all the time. So similarly, Krishna is allowing us to take these bodies all the time, at different times. So Krishna is always there. Even when we leave in this particular body, Krishna is still going on. Did you ever think of that? When we die, the world will go on as though we never existed almost, you know. It'll actually go on. It won't pay much heed to us going. Maybe there will be a few tears for a while, or some of our relatives and friends. And even maybe in one lifetime, people will remember us, you know. They might remember us fondly, they may not remember us fondly, you know. That, that matter, whatever. But we don't know. We don't really know. How do you do it, Jack?